Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another Babbling review show. Forest 3, West Ham nil. Sloth, it was quite predictable what was going to happen. I think when we saw the lineups, which we're going to get into in a second, we almost feared for the worst. And yeah, the performance was a massive disappointment, and it wasn't something that we wanted to push on from last week against our win against Manchester United. So we're going to break it down, look into what happened, why it happened, and why we feel like the writing could be on the wall a little bit for Julen Lopetegui at West Ham. And it just hasn't worked out so far. But if you enjoy it, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to the channel, and yeah, we'll get into the breakdown of each goal, each kind of key aspect of the game, and just structurally how we were so poor with the back three. I guess that's a good starting point, Sloth. So obviously we lined up with the back three this time around. He brought in Mavropanos to play with Todibo and Kilman in the back three. Then we had a four of Emerson, Alvarez, Rodriguez, Wan-Bissaka, with a front three of Bowen striker, and then Somerville on the left and Paqueta on the right. Which again, did that confuse you a little bit when the lineup came out? Obviously, Souček was out with a virus. I thought that if he was going to play a back three, he'd probably want to play Alvarez as part of the back three in the middle, so he can kind of build up in possession in midfield like we did against Man United. I feel like maybe because Souček was out, he opted for Mavropanos. But what was your thoughts on his decision to play Paqueta on the right and Bowen striker?
I mean, moving probably your most reliable player into the middle is something that we've discussed, and it's definitely something that I understand why he's moved him into the middle. What I don't understand is why he's done it for Paqueta, who has been abysmal all season. And I think when you look at the possibility of having Antonio up there, yeah, I don't think he offered anything really in the second half. And we'll obviously get to that in a bit later on. But I think Bowen would have offered a lot more out on that wing than Paqueta did all game. I don't really understand why we keep persisting with putting him in the starting lineup, because I would have put Bowen on the right-hand side and Antonio up top. And I know kind of before the game we discussed options and what to do. And I think I'd mentioned putting Ings up top as a more clinical option. To be honest, we could have had a retiree up top, and either of them would have been more effective than having Paqueta out on that wing. He's been anonymous all season, and people can make all the excuses they want with the betting scandal hanging over his head. But at the end of the day, I think if you're getting paid a silly amount of money and that's what's getting you down, you really need to basically just pull your crap together and put in a performance. At least work hard. He's not doing that at all. And yeah, as I said, I'm not impressed with his constant selection. I think he needs dropping. So while I understand the three at the back, it is a bit of a risky strategy when we are low on centre backs. I think it was possibly too negative a choice, and maybe could have been subjugated by stocking up the midfield. We're so easy to carve open, and going to a three at the back did not change that, which is a bit of a worrying sign.
Yeah, I think there was a couple of things that I was worried about when the lineups came out. I think the first one, as you mentioned, playing a flat back three with Mavropanos, Todibo, Kilman was never really going to work, because with a midfield pivot of Alvarez and Guido in front, where is that creativity coming from? We said it under David Moyes when we were playing those sort of midfield pivots. There just wasn't anything in there. And, if you're playing Paqueta on the right, Somerville on the left, okay, that's more natural. Bowen at striker, again, negating his strengths as a player by putting him there. It would have just made a lot more sense to me. I don't know, just to put Paqueta as the false nine and keep Bowen on the right-hand side. I'm not really sure why he opted for Paqueta on the right-hand side. I'm guessing he wanted him to kind of invert a little bit from the right-hand side and have Wan-Bissaka overlapping as the wing back, but it just didn't work. And it not only did it negate us going forwards, it also left us massively vulnerable on the right-hand side because Paqueta wasn't working back. He was ridiculously lazy, as was Aaron Wan-Bissaka. But I think that was kind of one of the main key points, playing that back three with Alvarez being part of the back three. It would have allowed that build up a little bit more. And as you say, you can bring in Paqueta into the midfield or play someone a little bit more progressive in the middle. But I think having done the preview analysis of Forest, we know that averaging possession of like 40%. They're happy to sit in with their shape. They play a 4-2-3-1. They've only got Chris Wood as their striker, and he sits in. They're not a high pressing team. So what we saw in the first half, as we'll go through, is sideways and backwards football from our back three, because Forest were just happy to let us have possession of it there. And then we just weren't impactful when we got it into the final third, because we just didn't have the options because everyone was back. So it was just like a catch-22. And we'll be able to see it from the stats here. We just didn't perform well. Obviously, the red card that happened with Alvarez, which we'll get into shortly, didn't help the second half. But even in the first half, we had one shot, I think, on target in the first 45 minutes, and that was before the red card. Other than that, we were just really poor. I think we had 60% possession in the first half as well. That kind of paints the picture as pointless possession for stats. It wasn't impactful in any way. And, as we see the kind of summary here, Forest did end up having more possession than us as we went down to 10 men. But, look, 4 shots to their 19, 6 shots for them, 2 on target for us, 3 big chances they had. They missed 2 of them. And again, there was just nothing from us. And you can see here, the types of areas that Forest were getting shots from was very concerning. And you see our shots there. I mean, only 2 just inside the box, really. The other 2 were outside the box. And is that the story for us so far this season, Slough? Just not clinical enough, not creative enough, and defensively just so timid and weak.
I think lazy as well. Lazy, lack of intensity, and, kind of just hinted at it there where stats are deceptive. I don't know how Aaron Wan-Bissaka's come away with a positive rating there on that lineup. It's absolutely shocking. Look, I understand he's trying to offer more as a wing back, but this is a man who I think in his entire career probably has single digits in terms of assists. I'm not criticising him as a defender. I think that is what you should look to harness. And if you are going to play a back three, why not put him as the right centre back and then put Soufal as the right back? And because he is the man who is leading the way in terms of the assists in that back line. So why are you not utilising that asset and having 2 right backs who can double up on each other if you're going to play a back three? Mavropanos has played at right back before, so he's got no excuse for switching off. But I think Wan-Bissaka, this is where stats can be really deceptive. And we both sort of looked at him after his introduction and said, right, really impressed with him. Because he was being defensive minded, he wasn't looking to go forward as much. But when he was impacting play. Mm-hmm. Yesterday, he was parked on the halfway line, not working backwards. And you're completely nullifying what is the strongest aspect of his game. I am at a total loss of how this back five is meant to work, because normally you would have one defender go forward and, the back five tucks in. And if you want to offer yourself as an outlet, maybe you're the willing runner in front of him, then you can link up like that and you can create the triangles that we saw work so well last season at points. But when you are not willing to run anywhere backwards beyond the halfway line, that is a major, major flaw in the system, because then you're just massively exposed on one side. And, I just mentioned the lack of intensity and the lack of pace in the side. When I talk about lack of pace, I don't just mean speed. The issue with our midfield is that we're not making it tough to play through. And that is going to massively hinder us. If you can't have pace in midfield, you need to make it difficult to play through. We are completely disjointed, and you can carve through us like a knife through butter. It's terrible. Why we are not just saying, okay, if we're going to play five at the back, we need to basically then utilise our midfield, and one drops and instantly the other instantly presses, or we just all get back. We all get back and make it so it's impossible to break us down unless it's through the wide areas. But the problem with that is our wide wing backs aren't doing the defensive work, so it's baffling. There's no plan there, or it looks like there's no plan that has been worked on consistently across the course of the season.
I mean, yeah, we said it last week against Man United. Yes, one of our goals came from us pressing cohesively, but they all should. I think Man United should have scored 8 goals in the first half, where a lot of our kind of issues came from us trying to press really, really disjointedly. And I just don't think the players really understand what they're doing on the pitch, to be honest. I think it's just, as I mentioned it last week, I think it's been instilled into them to press at any given opportunity, regardless of the scenario or situation. Like you said there, sometimes it's about being a bit more compact, just getting back into your shape. Arsenal are one of the best in the league that do it. When they lose the ball, they recover and they get bodies behind the ball and they make it very difficult to break through. We're the complete opposite of that. If we lose the ball, say it's in the final third, we're attacking, we lose the ball, it breaks down. Our instinct now is to just go. It's just to go for it. It's gung-ho. But if you don't have the structure behind that, you're going to leave gaps. And even when we are sitting in and we are kind of in that middle low block, we don't have the concentration and we don't have the fundamentals to do it. The players just aren't taking that responsibility as well for themselves. But again, that comes from a lack of coaching. That comes from a lack of implementation on the pitch, on the training pitch. And Lopetegui's been here a long time now, 5-6 months. He was here, we had a full preseason, he's had a full transfer window now, he's had his players integrated, bar Fulkrug. There's no excuse now. Fulkrug doesn't change the way we play in that game against Forest, really, to be honest. It doesn't change that much. It might change a few things, but defensively it doesn't change much. So let's kind of break down the first half, Sloth, because they had a few early warning signs, to be honest. There was a few times where we went out to try and trigger that press, and I could have included it here. And as you mentioned, just so easy to play through. It was 2 or 3 passes and Forest were in. In this situation for Forest's first goal, 27 minutes into the game, we find ourselves in this situation. So there's your back 5. You got Paqueta and Guido over on that right-hand side, where Forest are kind of overloading on that left. There isn't too much danger here, to be honest. Like, we look pretty comfortable in this situation. There's not really much Forest can do from here, you're thinking, unless they, absolutely carve through us. We move it on to the second frame. You see Paqueta there. You see Wan-Bissaka there highlighted. They're just kind of static in this situation, as is Mavropanos, as you can see. There's so much space between Wan-Bissaka and Mavropanos there, even though we're playing a back 5. It's asking for a ball to be played over. The ball comes to Gibbs-White as he's getting it here. We know he's a creative player and he will see that picture. And all it takes is one simple pass through. And again, keep your eyes on Wan-Bissaka and Lucas Paqueta in this situation. They're both flat-footed. Wan-Bissaka's pointing. Tadibo's looking over his shoulder at Chris Wood. Okay, that line's fine. Mavropanos is square up as a defender, which you never want to be. And yeah, Paqueta and Wan-Bissaka just standing still and letting their player run off him. And that's exactly what Forest do. He runs into the space. And look at the reaction of Paqueta and Wan-Bissaka as soon as that ball's played over. Are they trying to get back in and sprint and help their team out after they've just caused this issue themselves, really? No, they're not. They're just coming back. They're walking back. Guido Rodriguez is right next to him in this frame here. At least him and Somerville are trying to get back in after this situation. Paqueta and Wan-Bissaka are walking. And again, we move it forwards here. They're still walking. You can see there Guido is already overlapping Wan-Bissaka and Paqueta. And then the next mistake comes in. And it's, again, this is something that is a lack of understanding on the football pitch. Players have to take responsibility for it themselves. And they need to take ownership for these situations. I think as good as Tadibo was yesterday in moments, he switched off twice that indirectly caused 2 goals. Look, it shouldn't have got to this situation here. But Tadibo, you can see it. Chris Wood's there. And Kilman and Emerson, they should be tucking into this situation. Alvarez should be tucking in to cover Alanga. And Kilman should be tighter with the space with Tadibo. But so there's 2 mistakes there. Kilman doesn't get back in. And Tadibo, you can see him. He's got Wood there. He's got him in his sight. They're tussling, so he knows exactly where he is. So why on earth does Tadibo do this? He goes in front of Chris Wood, just completely leaves him, stops looking at him, and Kilman's just jogging back in. And it's just asking for Chris Wood to... Like, I remember the commentary was like, oh, it was amazing movement from Chris Wood to find the space. It wasn't. Rewatch the goal. He stands still. He stands still for about 10 seconds and just drifts into the space because he's like, well, no one's going to mark me. I'll go there anyways. Todibo gets drawn towards the front post, completely leaves his man. Kilman isn't into that space to even take him on if he does lose him. And then we move it forwards here again, just highlighting Wan-Bissaka and Paqueta, their effort in this situation. They're still walking back. They're still ambling back. And there you see the issue with Chris Wood and Kilman in the center of your screen there. You know, Kilman's not tucked in. Todibo's just left him for some reason. And it's a good ball in. Again, Mavropanos should have probably blocked it, which we've said on a few times this season. He's failed to do that. And Chris Wood just scores the easiest header of his life. So does that epitomise West Ham at the moment, Sloth? Not just the structural issues, but also, as you say, the players taking some responsibility on the pitch and actually trying to make something happen.
It's an absolute shambles of goal to concede. And, you know, you've got the league's most clinical striker, and not once does Todibo think, actually, you know what? I'll mark the man. Instead of just watching the ball, I'll mark the man. I'll see what he's doing, and I'll actually just try and, you know, jockey with him or cut out the chance to cross. And even once that little ball is played over, and it's a good ball in, the problem is Todibo doesn't make a single effort to throw himself toward the ball. For me, there is a massive disconnect in this back line that needs serious addressing. And, you know, we wanted Kilman to be a captain or a leader. I think that you're going to need bloody Captain America in there to try.
There's too many individual mistakes across the team at the moment.
It's not mistakes; it's basic football understanding,
competence.
You know, yeah, and with that, you know, Mavropanos at least makes an effort, and I think that maybe asking him to block the cross there, yeah, it's one of those things that you can try and do. He has tried to play and block the cross. Todibo there should not be losing Chris Wood. What are you doing when the most clinical striker in the league, and I'm going to keep saying that, is ghosting in away from you? You're not even looking at him. It's pathetic. And I did the curse of the commentator. You can replace commentator with any C word you like there as well, because it probably applies. But I said he looked a Rolls Royce of the defender because he turned someone about, 5 minutes before that. And I was like, okay, it's good to see confidence on the ball. It's not good to see incompetence at the back. And that is absolutely pathetic. I don't understand what Julen Lopetegui has been doing on the training ground if we're not doing the basics, because, Jack Elderton tweeted out about how we basically traded everything that we did last season just to play some extra passes along the back. And when you're not willing to if your wing backs aren't willing to get involved and come back as well, what is the plan? There's no communication. And if I was Mavropanos and I've at least made the effort, I would be rollicking. I would be absolutely rollicking to Todibo, going, what the hell are you doing? I've just dived in to try another. It's an easy ball to cut out. You've done nothing. It's shambolic defending.
Agreed. I mean, it did. Again, it comes from the lack of the basic sort of fundamentals of a cohesive unit. Wan-Bissaka and Paqueta in the first instance, standing still, not expecting a simple pass like that over the top is absolutely mental. Like, it is crazy that was allowed to happen. And again, it wasn't like that sparked a reaction from the team. It was kind of the same as we saw in the first 27 minutes, where, as you say, the back three were passing to each other backwards and sideways. Very, very rarely did we try and move the ball forwards. If we did, it was through wide. Forest just forced us into wide areas with our wing backs, and because Bowen was drifting out to the right a lot and Paqueta was also trying to vacate that space, we just didn't have anyone in the box. And then you compare that to when Forest were breaking, they had 4 or 5 attacking options hitting the box hard, and we just didn't know how to deal with it. And it just became a massive issue throughout that first half. Forest had a couple of other really good opportunities to score. We had a good opportunity from a set piece that Paqueta almost scored from. Chris Wood gets it off the line. That would have been completely unjustified, that goal, to be honest. We didn't deserve anything. And then just a moment later, again, from our own set piece, from our own control of a match and lack of structure defensively, if we do lose the ball, this is where Edson Alvarez, the red card happens just on the stroke of half time. So let's break this down, Soft, because I want to get your thoughts on it. I know in the group chat, I was very vocal about Alvarez and what he was doing in that situation. But let's go through it because, again, you look at the clock, 46:23. You've got, 90 seconds until the halftime whistle goes. The ball's come back out to here after a set piece kind of broke down. You're thinking, right, firstly, why is our structure when we have a set piece like this, why have we allowed it to get to this position here where Forest have very, very comfortably gone man for man as they've come out of the box? And you can see on this left-hand side here, we have no one there. It is completely vacant because of the issues that we've got out of when we have possession of the ball, and we just don't have the structure behind it to, if we lose the ball, what is the next phase of play going to look like? We don't have that instilled right now under Lopetegui. I don't think he's really coached that. We've got in, I feel like he's trying to coach, like, get into these positions, make things happen, but there's nothing behind it. There's no substance behind it if we lose the ball. And that's exactly what happens. We lose the ball. It transfers into this right-hand side of space, which is mental because obviously the fastest players that Forest have are going to vacate the wide areas. You know, Elanga, Hudson-Odoi, we mentioned it in the preview. They will kill you on transitions if you're not careful. And then you see it here. So look, the reaction here from Alvarez is good. That's the positive. He's trying to get back. He's sprinting back in. Emerson makes the first mistake trying to close this off. He should just drop back in, to be honest, but he's in a very tough situation because he's been left with two people, and Elanga makes a very good run in behind. Suddenly we find ourselves in this position, and again, you can see Alvarez, there's one thing in his mind. His whole way that he's running back, there is only one thing he has in his mind, and that's to slide in and try and win the ball. I'm convinced of it because there's not a change in stride the whole way from the Forest half all the way back to here. Look, I'm not faulting the effort of Alvarez here, but have a bit of common sense on the pitch. And, you know, you can see it here just before it's about to be made. You are not going to beat Elanga in a 1v1 race. He is going to get past you. He's about 10 times as fast as you. You've just sprinted 70 yards. You're probably blowing at this point. And Elanga kind of takes a really good touch inside and almost entices Alvarez to make that challenge. And he just gets it completely wrong. He just takes Elanga out. And it was just such a stupid tackle to do. Because, again, you've got arguably players covering here. There's no one really in the box. Again, I can see what he was trying to do, but have a bit of context to what you're doing. Like, he literally just did it at Liverpool away a few weeks ago. And he's done the same thing again. Who's to blame for that situation, Slough? Do you put blame on Alvarez for his, I don't know, reckless behavior, or is it a structural issue that leads to that in the first place?
It's all on Alvarez. You know, it's very hard to excuse the poor structure, but when you are so brain dead as to make that challenge when there's so many other players around you, it's unbelievable. I cannot fathom why no one is shouting at him there to, you know, just communicating, basic communication on a football pitch. You know, you've got cover around you, or we were supposed to believe that Guido and him have played together before. If that's so, what the hell were they doing? Were they playing badminton? Were they playing something else? Because this is terrible. Like, it's so Sunday League, like, you know, well, I'm going to make a big run. I'm going to make a challenge. And that's kind of disrespectful to Sunday League because they'd have a bit more brain about them. I don't understand why, when you have so many other players around you, you feel the need to make a stupid challenge like that, especially when you're on a yellow card just before halftime. Just jockey it. Just try and cut off the channel if you can. You don't have to lunge in. And yes, the shape that we're going into for the set piece is partly to blame for why there is so much space for Elanga to run into. But it doesn't excuse making such a stupid schoolboy error. And he has to really look at himself. And just, we've been reading all these things about how he's apparently got in a new fitness coach and he's got a chef in. What the hell are they giving him? Like, It's nonsense. Well, they're giving him freaking steroids and hormones that drive him mad. It's wild. And I said it yesterday. It's like Thomas Repka is back. His ghost has suddenly like reincarnated into Alvarez. I've not seen decision making that bad since then.
Yeah.
And honestly, you know, we saw an article earlier about Lewis Orford potentially coming in as his replacement. Get him in and give him a run of games, because Alvarez doesn't deserve to come back for a while. I just cannot fathom why you would do that, because he has let his entire team down. And at least at 1-0 down, you know, Lopetegui can take a bit of the brunt on the shoulders, which he should do, but you have something to play for. And you can say, right, we're 1-0 down, let's galvanise, come together, and this is what we can do. We can attempt to try and get ourselves back into this game. You've basically thrown everyone else under the bus. Like it's shambolic, and I hope they fine him. Like I hope they fine him a large amount of money, to be honest, because it's pathetic. Yeah, no, that's my rant over.
No, it was terrible. It really was a bad decision from Alvarez. And you know, again, it epitomized what's going on right now, doesn't it? Just reckless, lack of structure, lack of cohesion, and just lacking fundamental brain knowledge on brain power on the football pitch to make conscious decisions as a footballer. And you know, this is the Premier League we're talking about. And as you mentioned, it's disrespectful to the Sunday League to put it in the same bracket. But look, we were down to 10 men just before half time. It could have been 2 or 3, to be honest. They had some really good opportunities in the first half that we just didn't pick up. And yeah, Lopetegui, again, being a proactive manager, trying to adapt to the red card, brings in Carlos Soler, takes off Somerville, and brings in Antonio for Guido Rodriguez. So he made 2 changes at half time. But to be honest, I don't think any West Ham fan at half time was thinking we could nick a goal here or we could get back into this game. It was just so flat, and it was just so adept of ideas and, you know, trying to make things happen. And the inevitable second goal came. And again, it comes from basics, the fundamentals. Again, people say we're down to 10 men, you know, there's always going to be an extra body. It does not for this context. So look, they have a free kick on the 64th minute. Yeah,
just before we analyse that, I think, you know, I could understand taking Somerville off for his form in the first half. Like, he didn't have a good first 45, and I think that's being generous. But how you can take him off over Paqueta when you know you're going to have to sit deeper and you're going to need to counter with pace, I just don't understand that decision making. It's baffling to me, and it's not like Somerville isn't working hard. Like, he is trying to track back, and you could see it yesterday. He was trying to do things, and there was some work there. To negate that for Paqueta at the moment, for me, that is terrible management, and it is inexcusable. And you know, maybe people are going to think I'm being too hard on Paqueta, but you know, we may as well have had 10 men from the start with him. He was awful, and I just do not understand why we are making excuses, or, you know, we're giving him special treatment to go out and play so poorly when we have other options available. And I just
do we have other options available though, Slough? That's the question.
Well, we could have simply taken Paqueta off, put Antonio on, and you know, at least then we have a bit of pace to counter with.
Yeah.
And I just don't understand it. Like, I really, again, if you're up against Nottingham Forest, you know they're strong at the back, but you know they also have pacey wing backs. Why on earth would you keep Paqueta on the pitch when you're going to need pace to try and get anything from the game?
Well, he also ended up picking up another yellow card, as he normally does, and I think that's his 5th booking now of the season. So I believe he's going to be suspended for Everton. We'll need to double check that, but pretty sure now he's going to be out.
Like, oh, what a loss that's going to be.
So yeah, I mean, I agree. He didn't deserve to be on the pitch more than Somerville anyway. Like, Somerville didn't have a great half at all, but neither did the other 10 players on the pitch. And you know, we could have taken off a handful of players in that situation. And look, it didn't happen. Again, it was stale. We didn't really do much in the second half. And then the goal comes. And it's just a simple set piece. And again, it's just mistake after mistake. I'm not sure what I mean. Again, I might be wrong. I might be being overly critical here. But did we need two people in the wall for this from this angle? I feel like it could have just been one. But even then, we've got a couple of players that we've left free in the box that could have been a spare man ready to trigger this. And even if we're going to leave Callum Hudson-Odoi here, we have to be ready to react to this happening. We have to be ready to close this down or almost be ready to trigger as soon as that ball's played. It doesn't happen in time. We're too slow out to Callum Hudson-Odoi. Bowen tries to sprint in. Antonio, I'll be honest, doesn't sprint in. It's kind of a jog. And then Callum Hudson-Odoi, look, again, he's a free man and he just whips it into the far corner and it goes through a body, but it's still one I think Fabianski should be saving. Yeah. It kind of goes through his gloves. I think it takes a skim off Tadebo's head or a defender's head. But do you think Fabianski should be saving this, Sloth? And who do you put the blame on really for this being allowed to happen? Should Callum Hudson-Odoi have space like this on the outside of the box, regardless of whether we have 10 men, or is that being harsh?
No, you should have a plan in place where if Callum Hudson-Odoi is on the edge of the box, someone goes out and meets him. Thank God we didn't have Alvarez on the pitch because he would have two-footed him. But, it's just basic defending again. You can't leave a man like Callum Hudson-Odoi, who is going to hit it with his right foot and wants to be there, has scored so many goals from that sort of area. You're just giving him a free shot. It's amateurish. And I just said that Paqueta was embarrassing, but Antonio's embarrassing here, and he's got no excuse for it because he's only just come on. It is a shambles of a jog out, and again, I'd be embarrassed at Sunday League if I'm Antonio. I'm going out to meet him, and if I have to take it on the chest and like a thumper of a shot, then I have to take it on this chest, and for a couple of days, I'm going to have a red mark there.
It just kind of epitomizes it, doesn't it? The players just don't seem to care enough. They just don't really. I don't think they really buy into what's going on the training pitch and where we're trying to go. I don't think people understand the direction that we're trying to go in as well. And it's such a stark contrast from the way we played under David Moyes for 4 years. So it was always going to take time to adjust to a new, tactical approach and having a new flexible mindset of, being a little bit more attacking. But look, Kilman, Wan-Bissaka, Todibo, Guido, Somerville. There's 5 players that I've just named there that started the match that are new players, are new bodies for Lopetegui to implement his system, his way of playing. And it just doesn't look any different, to be honest. It's regressed from last season, and we're just finding ourselves in worse situations. And I think the third goal, again, it just comes from our own mistakes again. Forest, in complete control at this point. We've pretty much given up. I mean, look at Paqueta's body language in the middle of your screen there. Just walking, just standing still. But on the far-hand side, Carlos Soler, I've said he's been underwhelming, to be honest, in a West Ham shirt so far. And he just gets beat so easily in this situation. Like he's holding Aina here, and he's got him pretty much where he wants him. 2 seconds later, he's just absolutely skinned him. Like he literally just shoved him to the side. It wasn't any like force or anything. It was literally just a little shake off, and Aina played it through him. Todibo comes across, and Todibo kind of was stuck more as a midfielder when we were trying to play in the second half and control the game, but it didn't work. And look, Todibo did a lot of good things yesterday, but he also did a couple of really bad things. And again, look at Paqueta's body language here. It's ridiculous for someone that's meant to be dropping in and playing in midfield. We move it forwards here. Todibo actually wins possession of the ball. When you have 10 men and we're in this situation, do not try any stupid flicks over someone on the edge of your own box. It's just because you've got your socks low down and you've been playing some good passes, it doesn't mean you can do that as a centre back. But he does it. Aina reads it after going on a really long run. You could tell Aina was kind of blowing at this point as well. But again, it's the fundamentals, it's the basics of wanting it more than your opposition. And that's what it comes down to against Forest. They just wanted it more. And they get into this position, they win it back. Paqueta's got his arms out. I don't know what he's doing. He's doing some sort of dance in the bottom of your screen. He's not interested in the game. And to be fair to Aina, it's a fantastic goal. It really is, on his left foot. He pings it into the top left-hand corner. It's an unbelievable strike. But again, we're just sitting back as a defence. No one closing him down. And that made it 3-0. And that was all she wrote. And it could have been more after that as well. Fabianski made a really good save. But 3-0 loss, Slough. I think we said it in the preview. It had potential to get ugly, this one. We remained a little bit more optimistic in our predictions, but I think we deep down knew that this could have happened, especially when the lineups were announced. So how are you feeling off the back of that defeat? I think there's been calls for Lopetegui, which I feel like we'll do in a separate video, but do you think his time is he's walking on thin ice now? Would you pull the trigger on the sacking, or would you wait?
I mean, when you put into perspective that last week we could have easily been 4-0 down at half time, I think we'd be having a very, very different conversation if we had not picked up 3 points. And even then, it doesn't negate that first 45 minutes. I'm at a loss, really. I've said it so many times, but the issues at the top of the football club in the appointment, David Sullivan has to have his, he has to have his way, or else he's going to throw everyone under the bus. He's going to go to all his sources. He's going to say, oh, this is Steiten's fault. This has happened. Well, actually, you had a chance to appoint a new manager all summer. You could have done anything. And if you had planned to go your separate ways from David Moyes, as early back as we were led to believe, you could have gone and appointed anyone you like. And there are caveats to that. You have to be realistic. But if you buy cheap, you buy twice. And that is exactly what's happening now. I don't see any progression forward in any way at all, apart from passing along the back three. And to be honest, I can take it or leave it. I am not fussed about that. I think this is all down to one man and his desire to be right. People can point the finger at Tim Steiten all they like, and they can throw their toys out the pram and say, oh, so much for him and his jet picks, and whatever they want to do. I'm going to get upside down Dawson or something like that, because he's a very active man on social media. But I just cannot fathom any way that someone thought this would go well, because look, Lopetegui we analysed and we broke down, and there's a difference between wanting someone to succeed and wanting your club to do well, and thinking that someone is actually the right man for the job. I don't think any West Ham fan thought he was the right man for the job, but he does have a Europa League. And I think that was what kind of we were going, maybe he's got a pedigree. He's got a bit of pedigree. I'm sure David Sullivan was chomping at the bit for that and going, this is why I've appointed him, and rubbing his little hands together. But the fact is, you threw your old manager under the bus by refusing to sign a striker. We had a bare bones squad for so long, and all your chickens have come home to roost. This is all his doing. Yeah. And you can say, oh, he spent 100 million and he does deserve some props. Yes, but there needs to be a base for that. There needs to be a plan of action, and there needs to be some sort of appointment that goes in and says, this is how we want to play, and we aspire to get to here. We aspire to get to this way with a sort of football that has maybe a bit easier on the eye than some of David Moyes' football was. There's nothing in any way, shape or form that looks better. And I was kind of having a discussion with a friend of the channel earlier, where if we had gone out and signed a young, quick striker, I don't think, I think people would be saying, okay, well, we've still got to address that box-to-box area in the summer. We probably have a lot more goals if we had signed someone like Tierna Barry or, Oscarson, Real Sociedad. But that's a very easy scapegoat. And I think that when you really look at the situation we're in, it's years of neglect. It's years of signings like Danny Ings, relying on Antonio instead of actually buying someone. Not paying the money for Darwin Núñez when we know Moyes wanted him. Not paying the money for Dominic Solanke when we know Moyes wanted him to replace Scamacca, who we sold. It's years and years of neglect to a squad, not boosting that defence so they can play together and they know each other a little bit well. And even just adequate appointment for a replacement, it's a shambles. And I can't see him lasting until December. I really can't. If he does, that's another damning indictment on the owner.
Yeah, no, I agree. I don't think there'll be any immediate reaction, but we said it on, the podcast we did on the Hammers Chat Patreon. There is clear writing on the wall. We said I said it at least, that we'd give him kind of 15 to 20 games until we fully, judge and fairly assess what he's doing. I think he's had 13 or 14 games now as West Ham manager. For me, it's there now. It's clear as day. I want him to turn it around. I'd love for him to turn it around and for West Ham to be a successful football club. I just don't believe it's going to happen. And it's the issues we highlighted in the summer, why we were against the appointment and why we felt there were better options and better directions to take this football club. And we had such a good opportunity to do it because, as you say, the investment was there this summer, that you have someone like Tim Steidten who have proven that he can do his role. And then you're hiring a manager because it's the easier option to do when there's other better options on the market that could progress the football club. That's the big issue. Again, and look, Lopetegui for me, it's not a matter of if anymore. It's a matter of when. Do I think that Sullivan will act now? No. Do I think even if we lost to Everton next week, Sullivan would act? No. I don't think he would act unless it was a similar sort of situation to Pellegrini, where we find ourselves pretty much in the relegation zone going into the new year. Then he might have to have a little bit of a think and think, right, well, I could go down here as a football club and this will massively hurt me financially. So, look, we'll see what happens. I don't think that he'll get sacked in the kind of immediate to short term future.
I think there's a lot of anger in the fan base, particularly when you look at the concessions and, the Black Balloon protests that have been going on. And I fully support them as well. I think the issue and my attitude towards David Sullivan is he is treating this fan base like idiots. And he has been for a long, long time. And, it's not only the lies of moving us away from the bowling ground, going over old scars here, but it's not only the lies of that. It's not only the fact that it was supposed to be cheap, affordable football, and you can write that up however you want to do it. He's taken away concessions, and there is a lot of anger in the fan base at the moment. He's taken away a manager who had a lot of support, and rightfully so, deservedly so. But he didn't back that man. And he wanted to make sure that he looked like, oh, I'm the great decision maker. Same with Gowan Brady. It's all about how they look. And every single decision that they have made in their time as West Ham stewards has been in no way in the interest of the football club. It's been for them, so that when they sell it, they will make themselves a massive profit. And there's rumours at the moment that potentially we're never going to be able to get the stadium because they're going to fit solar panels onto the top of it. And Sadiq Khan, in all his wisdom, wants to try and make sure this is the eco hub of London. I kind of hope it happens, because then they're going to have to reassess exactly what they do and their long-term plan for the football club at the London Stadium, because this is in no way a world-class venue. It's basically a scapegoat, and they're going to have an asset which they're going to want to try and sell with no stadium to really back it up, no stadium to really call their own. It's years of poor ownership finally coming back to roost, and they got very lucky that they were left in the place they were, and they've appointed, I don't want to say the worst man for the job, because I think that's maybe a bit too hyperbole, but he wouldn't be far off the list of candidates, and they've only got themselves to blame.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And yeah, tough loss, tough defeat to take. Obviously, the importance of the Everton game next week is heightened, and yeah, as you say, we need to turn it around. Whether that's with Lopetegui, whether that's with a new direction, time will tell. But yeah, I mean, if you follow us on Twitter, you'll be able to see our thoughts on it very clearly. And you know, as Sloth mentioned there, we don't think Lopetegui will be the one to do it. Whether he does or not, whether he proves us wrong, again, time will tell. But yeah, let us know your thoughts down below on West Ham at the moment in the comments. And yeah, do you think Lopetegui will stay before Christmas? Do you think he'll be sacked pretty soon? And do you believe he can turn it around in a West Ham shirt? Have you seen enough in a West Ham shirt as the West Ham manager? Do you think he's done enough so far in his career to suggest that there are improvements and there are signs of things going in the right way? But yeah, let us know down below in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like. As always, subscribe to the channel for more content in the future. And Sloth, until the next one, come on, you are.